"Can I play for a piece of food?" said the homeless black girl. Everyone laughed, without imagining who she really was. 12-year-old Alexandra Matheson stood trembling at the grand piano of Bella Vista Restaurant, the city's most exclusive dining establishment. Every wealthy patron in designer clothes stared at her dirty, torn outfit with disgust and amusement. "You? Play piano?" Restaurant manager Ramsey Taylor had just finished laughing so hard that tears streamed down his face. "Look at yourself, kid. This isn't a charity kitchen." The entire dining room erupted in cruel laughter. Someone shouted, "This should be entertaining." Another diner pulled out their phone to record what they expected would be a humiliating failure. Alexandra had begged for just a piece of food in exchange for playing their piano. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her small hands shook as she placed them on the keys. "When you embarrass yourself," Ramsey announced loudly for everyone to hear, "you leave immediately. And if you damage my Steinway, you'll owe me more than you could ever pay." The wealthy diners whispered and snickered. Some placed bets on how quickly the dirty little girl would fail and run out in shame. Alexandra's fingers hovered over the pristine ivory keys. The entire restaurant held its breath, waiting for the spectacle to begin. If you want to see what happens next in this incredible story, make sure to subscribe, because what this little girl did next left everyone speechless. What none of these cruel, laughing people knew was that they were about to witness something that would change their lives forever. As we start this story, if you believe no one should be underestimated, type yes in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Only those who underestimate others won't subscribe. As Alexandra's trembling fingers touched the cold ivory keys, her mind drifted back to a time when everything was different. 6 months ago, she had everything: a home, a family, and a bright future in music. In her comfortable, middle-class home, a clean and well-dressed Alexandra had practiced piano every day while her father, Donald Matheson, watched with pride gleaming in his eyes. The warmth of their modest living room, filled with family photos and sheet music scattered on every surface, felt like a distant dream now. "Alexandra, your piece for the youth competition is perfect," he had told her, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mother would be so proud." "I miss her, Dad," young Alexandra had replied, her small fingers dancing across the keys with innocent joy. "But I'll make both of you proud." She could still feel the gentle weight of his hand on her shoulder, still smell his cologne mixed with the coffee he always drank while listening to her practice. Donald had been her entire world after her mother died, when Alexandra was just 8 years old. He worked brutal double shifts at the factory, his hands calloused and aching, just to pay for her piano lessons. He would come home exhausted, his face gray with fatigue, but his eyes would light up the moment she played for him. His dreams of her attending Juilliard kept him going through the loneliest nights after losing his wife. But then everything changed in the cruelest way possible. The cancer diagnosis came like a lightning bolt, shattering their peaceful world into a million pieces. Donald fought bravely, enduring chemotherapy that made him violently sick, radiation that burned his skin, and surgeries that left him weaker each time. The medical bills piled up like mountains of despair, tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of dollars that buried their dreams under an avalanche of debt. The house went into foreclosure, and Alexandra watched helplessly as her father grew thinner and weaker each day, his once strong hands becoming frail and cold. The worst day of her life came in that sterile hospital room that smelled of disinfectant and death. She held his skeletal hand as monitors beeped frantically around them, watching the light slowly fade from his eyes. "Keep playing, my angel," he had whispered with his final breath. "Music will save you when I can't." The silence that followed his death was the most deafening sound she had ever heard. After Donald died, 12-year-old Alexandra discovered the devastating truth. She had no other family, no grandparents, no aunts or uncles who wanted a grieving child. The state wanted to put her in foster care, to separate her from the only home she had ever known. Terror gripped her heart at the thought of strangers controlling her life, of being just another case number in an overwhelmed system. So she ran, clutching only her father's photo and the small keyboard he had bought her for her 10th birthday. 3 months later, Alexandra's life had been completely transformed, but the scars on her soul remained tender and raw. After that final escape, she lived like a ghost in the shadows of the city, surviving on scraps and the occasional dollar from strangers who pitied the dirty girl with the small keyboard. Every night, she whispered to her father's photo, promising him she would never give up music, no matter what it cost her. It was this journey through hell that brought her to Bella Vista Restaurant that fateful evening. Not just hungry for food, but starving for the chance to honor her father's memory through the one thing that still connected them. Every note she played carried the weight of her suffering, every melody a testament to her refusal to let the system break her spirit. Alexandra lost herself completely in the music, forgetting her hunger, her desperate circumstances, everything except the profound connection to her father through each note. It was as if Donald was right there with her, guiding her hands across the keys. For her final piece, Alexandra transitioned into Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, Third Movement, one of the most technically demanding pieces in classical piano repertoire. Her complete mastery was on full display as her fingers flew across the keys with lightning speed and perfect precision. The restaurant fell into complete, reverent silence except for her playing. At that exact moment, Dr. Elena Rossetti entered the restaurant. She was a renowned piano teacher at Manhattan Conservatory who had been dining with colleagues when she heard the extraordinary music drifting from inside. She stood frozen in the doorway, thinking to herself, this technique, this emotional depth. I haven't heard playing like this since my master classes with Vladimir Ashkenazy. As Alexandra finished, the entire restaurant erupted in spontaneous, thunderous applause. Some diners were openly crying, moved beyond words by what they had just witnessed. The same people who had mocked her minutes earlier were now on their feet, clapping with genuine admiration and respect. Ramsey approached Alexandra, completely humbled and ashamed of his earlier behavior. I owe you an apology, he stammered, and much more than food. Dr. Elena walked toward the piano, her eyes filled with wonder. Young lady, I'm Dr. Elena Rossetti from Manhattan Conservatory. May I speak with you? Alexandra, exhausted and overwhelmed by everything that had just happened, looked up with tears in her eyes. I just needed something to eat. Elena gently led Alexandra to a quiet corner of the restaurant, away from the still applauding crowd. How long have you been playing? She asked softly. Since I was 5, Alexandra replied. My father taught me until he died 6 months ago. Your father was a pianist? He played for the Metropolitan Opera for 20 years, Donald Matheson. Elena's face went completely white with shock. Donald Matheson? He was my colleague. I performed with him many times. I wondered what happened when he suddenly stopped performing. Ramsey approached with a full meal. His entire demeanor changed. This is on the house, forever, he said earnestly. You can play here anytime you want. Elena looked at Alexandra with determination and compassion. Alexandra, you need training. Proper training. I want to offer you something. Alexandra became suspicious, having been let down too many times before. I can't pay for lessons. You'll live with me, Elena said firmly. I'll provide everything you need while you prepare for conservatory auditions. In exchange, you help me with my younger students. For the first time since her father's death, Alexandra broke down crying, finally allowing herself to show the vulnerability she had hidden for months. What do you think Alexandra should do? Trust this stranger who knew her father, or stay independent on the streets? Let me know in the comments below. 3 months later, Alexandra's life had been completely transformed. In Elena's warm apartment and studio, she had become clean, healthy, and laser-focused with the intensity of someone who had stared death in the face and refused to blink. She practiced 8 hours every single day, her fingers bleeding from the relentless repetition, making up for lost time and pushing her abilities to heights that bordered on obsession. Every note she played carried the desperate hunger of someone who knew what it meant to lose everything. Elena sat Alexandra down one morning with serious news that made her stomach drop like a stone. Alexandra, I've arranged an audition at Metropolitan Academy, but I need to warn you. Marcus Sterling heads their piano department. What's wrong with that? Alexandra asked innocently. though something in Elena's tone made her heart race with dread. Elena's expression grew grave, the color draining from her face. Marcus doesn't believe in second chances or sob stories. He only cares about absolute excellence. He's failed students from Juilliard prep programs, kids who had every advantage you never did. He destroys dreams for breakfast and feels nothing. The words hit Alexandra like physical blows. After everything she had survived, after crawling back from the brink of death itself, she might still fail. The familiar terror of being rejected, of being thrown back onto the streets, clawed at her chest like a living thing. Alexandra's intensive preparation began immediately, with the desperation of a soldier preparing for war. She woke at dawn, her body screaming in protest for technical exercises that left her hands cramping and her back aching. She spent afternoons in grueling master classes with Elena, where every mistake felt like a step closer to the streets. She worked on performance anxiety training, but nothing could quiet the voice in her head that whispered she wasn't good enough, that she never would be. What brought her the most unexpected joy was helping Elena's younger students, discovering she had a natural gift for teaching. When she saw their faces light up as they mastered a difficult passage, she remembered what hope felt like. But even in those moments of happiness, the shadow of the upcoming audition loomed over everything. The phone call that would determine Alexandra's future came on a cold Tuesday morning that felt like Judgment Day. Marcus Sterling's voice was stern and unforgiving as he spoke to Elena, each word like ice cutting through the phone line. "I'll give her one audition. But Elena, if she's not conservatory level, don't waste my time." After Elena hung up, she looked at Alexandra with both desperate hope and paralyzing fear. Her hands were shaking as she spoke. "Alexandra, this is your shot. One chance. Everything we've worked for, everything your father dreamed of. It all comes down to 30 minutes in that room." Alexandra felt the weight of her father's ghost on her shoulders, the expectations of everyone who had helped her, the terror of disappointing them all. She could barely breathe. The day of the audition arrived like an execution date. At Metropolitan Academy, Alexandra entered a sterile audition room that felt more like a courtroom where her entire future would be decided. Marcus Sterling sat with 2 other faculty members, his presence filling the room like a dark cloud. Sterling was an intimidating figure in his 50s, a world-renowned pianist whose reputation for crushing dreams was legendary. Students whispered his name in hallways like he was death itself. "Miss Matheson," he said coldly, his eyes boring into her soul, "I understand you've had unusual circumstances, but talent is talent. Circumstances don't lower standards. I don't care if you lived on the streets or in a palace. You either have what it takes or you don't." "I understand, sir," Alexandra replied, her voice steady despite her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Inside she was screaming, "You have 30 minutes. Show me everything you have. Show me why you deserve to be here when thousands of other students don't." Alexandra sat at the concert grand piano, her hands trembling with the weight of everything riding on this moment. She began with the most technically demanding pieces in her repertoire. Liszt that made her fingers fly like lightning, Rachmaninoff that required every ounce of strength she possessed, Chopin that demanded her heart and soul. Her fingers flew across the keys with precision and power that seemed impossible for someone who had been starving on the streets just months before. The faculty members exchanged impressed glances, their eyebrows rising in surprise, but Marcus remained completely stone-faced, unmoved by her technical brilliance. His expression was carved from granite, giving nothing away. After 20 minutes of what she knew was flawless performance, Marcus spoke with devastating calm. "Technically proficient. But technique isn't enough. Any well-trained monkey can play the notes. Show me your soul. Show me why music matters enough to die for." Alexandra's breath caught in her throat. This was it, the moment that would determine if she lived or died as a musician. Her father's face flashed before her eyes, his final words echoing in her mind. "I'd like to play something I composed," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "For my father." Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "Original composition? Bold choice for someone with everything to lose." Alexandra nodded, tears already burning behind her eyes before she even began. She started playing Letter to My Father, a piece that had been torn from her bleeding heart and soul. Every note was a memory, every phrase a tear she had cried alone in the darkness. The composition wove together the warmth of her father's love with the agony of watching him die, the terror of homeless nights with the fragile hope Alina had given her. As Alexandra played, pouring every ounce of pain, love, loss, and desperate hope into the keys, something extraordinary happened. Marcus Sterling's cold, impenetrable facade began to crack like ice in spring. His hands, which had remained perfectly still throughout her technical pieces, began to tremble. Tears slowly streamed down his weathered face as the music reached into his heart and shattered every wall he had built around it. The other faculty members were openly weeping, their professional composure completely destroyed by the raw emotion flowing from this 12-year-old girl who had survived hell itself. When Alexandra finished, the room fell into profound, sacred silence. Nobody dared to breathe, to move, to break the spell that had been cast. Marcus's voice broke completely as he spoke, the words coming out in strangled sobs. In 40 years of teaching, 40 years of hearing the world's most talented students, I've never, Miss Matheson, you don't just have a full scholarship, you have a gift that will touch millions of lives, that will heal hearts I thought could never be healed again. From the back of the room came Elena's choked voice. She had been secretly watching, tears streaming down her face. Alexandra. Alexandra ran to Alina like a child running to safety, embracing her mentor as tears of pure joy, relief, and overwhelming gratitude flowed freely. She had done it. She had honored her father's memory. She had survived. Years passed, and Alexandra's story became legend, whispered in conservatory halls around the world. She performed in concert halls that glittered like cathedrals, her music moving audiences to tears just as it had that day at Metropolitan Academy. But her greatest achievement was founding Hidden Harmonies, a program dedicated to helping other homeless youth discover their musical talents and find their way back to hope. In quiet moments, she visited her father's grave, placing fresh flowers with shaking hands and whispering about her latest accomplishments through tears that never fully stopped. She knew he was listening, knew he was proud, knew that his sacrifice had not been in vain. Alexandra's journey taught her a profound truth, written in blood and tears. Sometimes our lowest moments, our darkest nights, our most desperate hours are actually the bridge to our highest calling. Music had saved her when she was dying, but now it was her sacred mission to save others through music. If this incredible story of transformation moved you to your core, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that no matter how dark things seem, no matter how impossible the odds, there's always hope for a brighter tomorrow. Today, thousands of homeless youth have found hope and healing through Alexandra's program. Her story proves that talent and determination can overcome any obstacle, that the human spirit is unbreakable, and that sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the deepest, most excruciating pain. What moment in Alexandra's journey inspired you most? Was it her courage at the restaurant, her relentless dedication during training, or her soul-crushing, triumphant performance at the audition? Let me know in the comments below.